A lot of you guys watching this video are probably looking at little 125cc bikes like my Papio here and thinking that would be a phenomenal bike to start riding on. And look, I totally understand. It's small, it's cute, it's an absolute riot to ride around. But if you're looking for a motorcycle to start riding here in America, this is a terrible option. Now, if me saying that ruins your plans for your motorcycle to start on, then don't worry. In today's video, I'm going to give you guys my tips on the bikes that I think are fantastic for you guys to start riding on. And at the end of the video, I'll tell you guys who 125cc bikes are actually for. Let's get into it. Now guys, before we get too far into this, I do want to say while I am on a CF Moto Papio, this video includes all the 125s. So we're talking the Grom, we're talking the Honda Monkey, the Z125. This goes for all the 125s. So the first issue I think you're going to run into with a 125cc bike is going to be the power. These bikes are obviously small and they are small on power. And in certain situations, you are going to find yourself needing more power. And if you're a beginner, you may find yourself getting in those situations more because you don't really have that motorcycle sense built up.
What more do you want from me?
Like, after you have some time riding, you can start seeing stuff that is about to happen or what a car is about to do. Once you've been riding a motorcycle for a while, you start getting this second sense of what's about to happen, and that can help you avoid a lot of wrecks and stuff like that. But if you don't have that sense built up yet, you're going to have to rely on your ability on the motorcycle to get you away from that stuff. And if you're just starting out, you don't have the time in the bike, on the seat, to really know that kind of stuff. So you aren't really going to have the power to get yourself out of bad situations. Now, the next thing you're going to notice on a 125cc bike is actually the charm of owning one, but it's a con technically if it's your only bike and first bike. Now, a lot of people will probably just look at a 125cc bike and think to yourself, oh man, it's just a smaller motorcycle and everything else is going to be the same. But in my experience, the time you ride on the 125 or any of the mini bikes, it is an entirely different vibe than riding a regular motorcycle. And that's not necessarily a problem, but if this is your first motorcycle and you come to expect that out of a motorcycle, it's going to be massively different when you actually get on a big bike or a normal bike. So while they do look similar, I don't think the experience you're going to have on a mini bike is going to be anywhere close to an actual motorcycle, which means you're not going to get an authentic understanding of what riding a motorcycle is like. So you'll learn a few things. Obviously, you can learn using a clutch and the brake and the controls, but just the overall situation, I feel like, is a little bit different than a regular bike. And I feel like you'd be doing yourself a disservice if this was your first bike and that's what was like implanting into your brain what a motorcycle is like. The next thing about a mini bike is while these things are technically legal to get on the highway, if you live in a place like I do, close to a big city, dude, the highway people are hauling absolute balls. And I've maxed this thing out at like 60 something miles an hour with a rear wind tucked in downhill and farting for propulsion. Like, these things are just not quick, and that's not a problem, but you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're on a highway where if you're going anything under 70 miles an hour, you are in danger. You don't really want to put yourself on a bike like this. If you mix that with being small on the bike, because, you know, it's tiny, it's just a recipe for not a good time at all. All right, final thing I want to hit on with why this is not a great bike for a beginner is because if this is your only motorcycle, you are going to outgrow it incredibly fast. You are going to find so many situations where you are just like, I need more power, and you want to get going, whether that's on a highway or if that's in traffic trying to keep up with traffic. I feel like you would max out your time on a 125 in a few months, and that's even if you start riding with zero experience. You're going to get to the point where you want more power, and this thing is not going to give that to you. So the question is, if you can't start on the 125cc bike that you wanted to in the beginning, Chase, what bike should I get for my first bike as a beginner? And for that, I've got a lot of answers for you, and I'm going to tell you about all of them while I ride one of them. This is a 2022 CF Moto 300 SS, and we're actually giving it away. If you guys want to enter to win this bike or the other bike that we're giving away, the CF Moto 450 SS, this thing's bigger brother, you guys can go over to wbrgarage.com. That's where that's our website where we do our bike giveaways at. And you kind of get 2 entries per entry because we're doing 2 bikes, so it's a good time. You can actually win this thing, and I will send it to you. Now, you guys are probably thinking, Chase, the difference in a 125 and a 300 to 400cc bike can't really be that much of a difference, right? You would be incredibly wrong. The amount of versatility you can get out of a 300 and a 400 versus a 125 is literally night and day. When you go into this CC class, you are now able, like, everything gets opened up for you. Now, obviously, riding around stuff like this with traffic and whatnot, you're not going to see that big of a power difference other than when you need to go and pass traffic like I just did. We've got plenty of power on a 300 to 400cc bike to not only keep up with traffic, which is where the 125cc is at, but now I have enough to be in traffic and make adjustments to where I am in the lane, which is going to make it a lot safer for me to ride. This amount of power also opens you up to all the styles of riding that you could want to do. Do you want to commute to work? Awesome. If you have to get on the highway, no problem at all. A 300 is going to be capable of doing highway speeds, but if you're going to be doing highway for a decent chunk of time, I would recommend maybe you start out and look towards the 400cc amount. But the point is, there is no style of riding that you're not going to be able to do when you're on a full-size bike that's in that 300 to 400 style range. Do you want to do sporty riding? Cool, not a problem. You can take this thing up to the mountains or the canyons or whatever's close to you and have an absolutely phenomenal time. Of all the versatility of riding that these bikes give, the ability to ride on the highway is probably one of the most important things, because commuting is awesome on a motorcycle. And if you couldn't commute on your bike, then man, that would be unfortunate. Now, let's talk about the price difference, because if you're looking at a 125cc bike to start riding on, I imagine the price is one of the major things that's driving you towards that bike over a larger bike. Now, I did some research, and compared to the Papio, this bike, this 300 SS, they actually don't make this in the US anymore, but they do make the 300 NK, and that bike is only $1,000 more brand new than a Papio is. So you're really only talking about saving up, in retrospect, a little more money to be able to get the full-size motorcycle, which I definitely think is worth it. So is $1,000 a lot of money? Yeah, that is a big chunk of change. But when you're talking about the difference in buying a motorcycle that you're going to be able to have for 2-3 years versus a bike that you're probably going to get tired of if it's your only bike after a few months, and after a few months, you're going to have to sell that bike, probably take a loss on it, and then you're going to have to buy a bigger bike anyway. I mean, you might as well start out with the 300 to 400 range bike, right? Another good thing about this low CC area of motorcycles is typically these things do not have a lot of tech. When you get into the bigger motorcycles, there's a lot of tech, a lot of buttons, a lot of controls. One, that can be a little intimidating, especially for a new rider. And two, it's a little confusing because you're like, what the hell does all this stuff do? The lower CC bikes do a pretty good job of keeping it just you and the motorcycle and the regular normal controls. So it allows you to focus on learning to ride and not learning how to operate the spaceship that you're on top of. Speaking of starting out on the 300 to 400 range, since you guys are looking into beginner bikes, I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you might not know like the best ones to look into. So here are my probably top, let's just say 3 bikes to start on if you're brand new to riding, like I was when I started riding motorcycles. And when I say brand new, I mean when I started riding, I didn't know how to use the clutch. So like brand new, you ain't got no idea what you're doing new. So one of the best and classic motorcycles for beginner riders is going to be the Ninja 400. It's going to be number 3 on my list. Kawasaki's a classic platform. They make great motorcycles, and a lot of people really love the Kawasaki 400. The good news is a ton of people have bought that motorcycle, so there's tons of aftermarket support for it. Number 2 on my list is another bike that is one of the biggest selling bikes for the company that sells it, and that's the Yamaha R3. If I'm not mistaken, the last time I checked, the Yamaha R3 was the highest selling motorcycle in Yamaha's entire lineup. So that tells you something. Also, the bike's fantastic. The platform is surprising how much power it puts out. And super popular bike. So, you know, there's plenty of stuff to modify it if you want to do that sort of thing. And they make them in pretty sick colors. Every time I go into the dealership, I feel like I see a new color of R3 and I'm like, bro, this is awesome. Absolutely. Now, my number 1 pick for motorcycles to start on right now is probably going to be the CF Moto 450 SS. The 300 SS is big brother. That bike, for what you get and the cost, makes absolutely no sense. You get a great TFT dash, you get LED lighting all over, a really nice screen with connectivity to your phone. I mean, the bike looks fantastic. I think we all can agree with that. And that 450 power plant is absolutely fantastic. And yes, that is the same bike that we are also giving away on the WBR season this season. So grab your entries while you can. You guys only have a couple more months if you're watching this video when it came out before we are going to close that and we are going to be picking a winner. Both of these bikes are fantastic. The 450, I would recommend for people that are a little more mature and know that they're going to be able to ride and ride respectively. And if you're brand new, you're really scared of the bike, then the 300 SS might be more your side. It's going to be a little less powerful, a little less intimidating, and honestly, the bike's a little more comfortable too than the 450 SS. So these are all things that you guys need to think about when considering that first bike. It is a really important decision. Now, those are all bikes that I feel are fantastic if you have never ridden before, but maybe you've got a little bit of riding experience. Maybe you used to ride years ago and now you're looking for your first actual bike or something like that. If you've got a little more experience, I think I would push you to a 650 class bike. That's actually what I started on, and I do feel like it might have been a little too powerful for me coming into it as somebody that's never ridden before, didn't know how to use a clutch, etc. But if you got a little bit of experience or you think you're mature enough to have that kind of power, I might push you towards a 650. I personally started on a Suzuki SV 650, and those platforms are really punchy, really fun. They do have a lot of power, though, if you're not used to riding a motorcycle. Now, I can hear you guys saying already, Chase, I want a 125cc bike. I don't care what you say. I will answer your question with who needs a 125cc bike or a 126 if you're getting a Papio. First person that I think these bikes are fantastic for is your second motorcycle. Get a full-size bike so you can get the experience of riding and having a good time. Then have a smaller bike as your second bike. That way, the whole different riding position and situation, you can actually enjoy and take advantage of and not be stuck with that be your only style of riding. These bikes make fantastic bikes to teach your friends how to ride because they're small and manageable and easy. They can stand up on them, or maybe you can get your wife into riding with getting a Grom or a Papio, you know, whatever the bike is that you want to try out. These bikes are fantastic for that. Now, second person that I think would do a great job of having one of these is if you have a ton of buddies with low CC bikes. Mobbing with a group of guys on all mini bikes is the most hilarious time you can have on a mini bike. I swear to God, it's one of the top 5 most fun ways to ride bikes. You get a group of like 10 to 15 dudes on mini bikes and you just go mob wherever you are. Cops don't care. People are laughing regardless of what you do. It's like a get out of jail free card when you have a ton of people riding these things. I could not recommend it more. I've done a Mini Monday with some guys here in Atlanta, and it's such a good time. If you are in that category, then by all means, grab yourself a mini bike. So there you have it, guys. While the 125cc bikes might not be perfect as a beginner bike, they make fantastic second bikes and for special situation bikes. Luckily for you guys that are starting riding these days, you guys have fantastic options on the market that I have no doubt you guys are gonna absolutely love. If you guys have any questions about what bike you need to start on, leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to help you guys out. If you're made it to this point in the video, you're in the outro crew, so put OC in your comment. After you like the video, let me know what bike you started on if you are currently riding. Guys, I'm Chaseontwowheels. You guys go out there and ride safe, and I'll see you on the next one. Later. Hold on, Chris, there's a cicada eating a bee. We have to get footage of this. Chris, are you getting this? This wasp, oh my God. The wasp is literally taking the cicada and it's coming after me. Dude, it's trying to fly off with it. It is chasing me, that's hilarious. Is it trying to use the cicada to be a bigger object for me to be scared of? You're stuck now, bud.